Legend Total War here, and today we're doing a video on Anno 1800, a game that I play fairly extensively in my spare time. I've actually clocked over 2,000 hours in this game, which is a lot considering I never make any videos or live streams on it, right? And recently there was a new DLC, and accompanying a DLC was a bit of a patch. Now, I usually don't make videos on other games unless I find something particularly juicy, and I've just so happened to find a very juicy little exploit. And it, funnily enough, has nothing to do with the latest DLC, which, by the way, I think is really good. But it has to do with the patch that accompanied the DLC, where it broke a couple of things if you know where to look. Most people will probably go through their games and not even realize that this exploit exists, and they might even be doing this exploit without even realizing it. But I sort of picked it up recently and saw how far I could abuse it, and oh boy, it's very far you can abuse it. But before we get into that in detail, I do need to let you guys know that this video here is sponsored by Instant Gaming. It's a website that I've been associated with for a while now. Anytime that I've purchased a key from here, it's always worked well. You get amazing deals. Anything from like 30 to 80% off, even I've seen 95% off. The costs are based on what you would normally pay on Steam if there wasn't a discount. And then the ratings over here let you know how good the users have rated the actual product itself, which I find weird that Rome 2 Spartan Edition would get a 10 out of 10. That's just weird to me. But anyway, go and check out Instant Gaming if there's DLC or games that you simply didn't really want to pay full price for, and you want to get a little bit of a discount. I thoroughly recommend Instant Gaming. It's been a good website to work with and good to purchase from. All right, let's go on to the Anno 800 stuff. Okay, so let's just focus on this little island here to begin with. This is, in this particular campaign that I'm doing, what I'm trying to do is get like a massive scholar population. That's really what I'm focusing on. Now, doing that takes a long time, since you can't just build scholars just willy-nilly. You have to research their houses, right? And it just takes a while to do it. Every time you do this research, it says 30 minutes, but it's actually 10. It takes 10 minutes and takes a fair bit of resources to do it. But usually speaking, I just like pop it down, put like 20 of them down, and then walk away from the computer for ages, and then come back and build a entire island. And as I was playing it over the past few days and getting my scholar population up, I noticed that every time I got out of the game and then get back into it, something was happening with the local department, in that the local department building would continuously keep forgetting what department I had selected, and it was kind of frustrating. I have to go around to all my islands and reselect everything. It wasn't happening over here with the main palace. So just another thing with this, in order to do this little trickery trick here, you only DLC that you need is the palace. However, you can only do this little trick anywhere that you can build a local department, which is only the old world, which doesn't require any DLC, and Cape Trelawney, which is a DLC. So, I noticed that, it kept taking off all my my local departments. However, when I was selecting the things that were affected, I noticed that the effect of that department was actually still active. So this one over here, for example, these two here are some of the effects from the local department. I'll put that back on here, right? It is a Department of Welfare, which provides extra area of effect for public order buildings. Sorry, not public order, for public buildings. So I can basically spread its influence out without having to build like 20 of them. And then I also had the Social Welfare Act, which meant for every house that's affected by a public building, which is shown in purple there, they will gain 5 extra happiness. That just made it easier for me to keep them from rioting and also having more festivals. It just benefited all around, right? So I would do that and then walk away. But then I came back after a while and noticed that, for some reason, there were 2 of the same things affecting each of my public buildings. I was like, what's going on here? Right? So I was like, okay, maybe it had something to do with the fact that I started this game before the DLC. And then I was like, okay, I'm not going to worry too much about it. But then I would get out of the game and get back into it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to save the game. Wait for it to save. Let's go to finish saving. Because if you load it right now, it'll just take you to the previous load, which is a bit weird, but anyway. Let's finish loading. And then just load that last save file that I just created. And see that something very strange happened. Now, many of you guys know where we're going with this, and I'm going to show you the extremeness that you can take this. But if you're not familiar with Anno 1800, the game has a lot of cheese in it, and there are definitely videos out there from min-max. There's a fairly big min-maxing community around Anno 1800 because the game just sort of like endorses you to do this kind of stuff. It's got a lot of stuff that allows you to just manipulate things like absolute crazy. It's one of the things I love about it. But this takes it to a whole new level. And we'll notice here that, once again, it has forgotten the department. However, it actually didn't forget the department. So I'm just continuously just keep increasing its range, right? Now, it's never going to forget that until I actually destroy the local department. Now, the thing is, I can have every single one of these active simultaneously, infinitely number of times, as long as I save and load each time between it. So let's see what the effects of true ridiculousness can actually be. Where I have a town over here called Exploits Are Us, where I have abused this to the point where it's kind of pointless to do it any further. So, here's my local department. It doesn't have anything currently active. Now, I've currently put a bunch of buildings in here that are affected by various different edicts, okay? So, looking at one of them, let's have a look at the Department of Administration. You'll notice that plus 300 island workforce per town hall. I've built a lot of town halls around the place, right? So, every time we do that, and then put in, I don't know, should we put in attractiveness for town halls maybe? You'll notice that we have 2,000 attractiveness, and the population is 45,000 for each type of people, despite the fact that nobody actually lives on this island. So yeah, there's currently nearly 200,000 people working here, because it doesn't give you investors, right? Okay, let's just pick a different one then. So what if I go Department of Culture? And what if I went influence per zoo module? Well, over here, in this zoo, it costs 10 influence to build a zoo module. But if you do this, 2 times, then you're actually gaining 10 influence. And so with 5 times, I'm gaining 1,000 influence every single time I'm doing this. So I'm gaining a profit of 4,000 influence from this. Now, that's not something that you really need to do. Getting influence is not difficult in this game, but that's something that you can do if you just want to get some quick influence. Okay, so what's another one we could do? Department of Labor, let's leave that one to last. That's the most exploitable. We've already seen the Department of Welfare and things that we can do with that. Let's have a look at the Department of Trade. So with this one here, we can get 1,200 tons of island storage per Harbour Master office. And I don't know, we could get 300% productivity for all coastal production buildings, but there's something interesting that happens with that if you do that multiple times. Extra island storage, could do that. More oil storage, extra item slots. It's a bit of a weird thing that can happen with this one as well. And reduced loading times for ships and trading posts and piers. This one here is the one that you want to do sort of infinitely, because that's the one that's actually going to really matter, right? And let's see what the effects of that are. So if we have a look over here, where I've done the Naval Logistics Act quite a few times, we've increased the loading speed from, I think its base was 5 to 30 here. So that's pretty good. Things will, offload a lot quicker, allowing for more traffic to come and go. But if we have a look at the Harbour Master office, I have increased my storage by a ridiculous degree. I can store over 100,000 of any material in this place. And the thing is, I've built a few of these around the place, including the Docklands one. Now, this one here is a DLC, but again, you don't need this DLC in order to make use of it, because Harbour Master offices are not part of the DLC. Now, as I was talking about before, with the... we haven't gotten to that bit yet, but yes, I've done a lot of the Department of Labor, right? So, this one here is the one that you can get the most use out of. So, the thing is, in the old world, I actually don't ever purchase, I don't make any of these goods. I just import them because it's just easier. But yeah, you could, if you were going to make grain or hops or whatever, you could essentially have it producing ridiculous amounts quite easily. Same thing with here. This one here would be more useful because there's a lot of materials here that are actually quite difficult to make and difficult to cheese. Not anymore, not with this. So being able to produce elevators, you know, for every one elevator that you build, you actually build, say, 50 of them. That's a big deal. Of course, you would need to do this a lot of times. You know, extra productivity from electricity. So that means, you know, just everything that is active with electricity will get an additional boost because the base is 100, but you can boost it by a lot. You can reduce the workforce needed down to 0 quite easily with just 2 of those. And then the item slot for trade unions. Now, let's have a look at that one first. This one over here. Jesus. Just having a look. So this is all the effects that I put in. I've done it. I did it for about an hour and a half, I think it was. Just saving and loading constantly. But anyway. With this one here, we've got the Union Subsidized Act in there, which is providing 1 extra item socket, right? But if I put in another one, it actually takes it away. Except it doesn't really. What ends up happening, right? Sorry, let me just move that away. Is that the game is not coded to understand 2 extra slots. If I was to put this guy in here, right? And then put this in. You might think, oh no, he's disappeared. He actually hasn't disappeared. He's still active. It's just that you can't put another one in there. It just, that one there just isn't going to work with this exploit. That's all. But the extra productivity from electricity, that's what we've got active in here. And I'll show you what this can do in a little bit. It's a bit ridiculous. Anyway, but to begin with, we're going to show you the fishery. So the fishery is one that I like to build a lot, which I showcased in a previous video with Anno 1800, because what I would do is just produce tons of fish, because I'm not going to put houses out in the water, because I can't, and then I would use the dock lens to import everything that I needed, because you could just put so many effects on here because of all these items. And these items will allow you to produce other goods, such as tallow, gold, more tallow, and then you increase the productivity to ridiculous degrees. And in fact, the fish isn't even the most important thing you get from here, it's all the other items. Now, with all of this in here, including the Coastal Reforms Act, we can get this productivity up to ridiculous degrees. Now, there is a point where it actually becomes quite pointless to do this, and we have gone beyond that point. If I press play on this, you'll see what happens. We can produce this shit at 0 seconds, and we're looking at least 2,000 or 3,000 productivity. However, it can't be loaded fast enough into a local storage area, and what'll end up happening pretty soon. I've also noticed that the more productivity you have, the more of these transport wagons you'll have, but there is a limit, and this one can only take so many. Now, of course, you could just build more of them, but you end up with a point where you just get backed up. It'll take a little while. It's about to happen now. All of my my wagons are backed up, and at 3,000 productivity, we're just... Now I've got to wait for all of these guys to be done before we can use more. So even though we have ridiculous amounts of productivity, something like the fishery just has limits on that. However, there are other things which you can bypass that thing. Bypass the sort of wagons. Now, it comes down to electricity. Any productivity that can use electricity can use a secondary form of wagon that basically can unload things pretty much instantly. And it just so happens that clay is such a thing that can use electricity. Now, I need to actually turn the electricity on. Is it? I haven't turned it on. Okay. Okay. Okay, what I need to do now is actually just save it again and load it, because if I get them to go right now, then it'll still use... I just gotta wait for it to finish. There we go. Wait for it to finish. It'll use the old wagons, which will get backed up. So it just had a whole bunch sitting in storage, essentially. And once again, it'll change the departments, so it'll forget again. But this will just take a moment. I just needed to make sure that the electricity was started before I loaded up the save file, if that made sense. I should have probably done that before I started the video. But this will just take a moment. Okay, here we go. So coming back over here, now I'm not going to have any problems. And we can see that once again, it's forgotten this again. And we've just added even more to it. Now, with clay. Clay is probably the best one to do this exploit with, because clay is affected by electricity, which means it can offload all of its goods instantly. It has some amazing items that can be added onto them to get secondary resources that are really good. So we can get, for every 3 cycles of clay production, we get 1 pearl, we get 1 gold. This one over here, which is providing it with electricity, also gets an additional pearl for every 4 cycles. This guy here is just... oh, no, this one here is giving us bauxite, which is a new resource added in the DLC. And bauxite actually sells for tons in the dockland, so that's actually really useful. And this one here, just there was nothing else for me to get out of it. So, when I press play on this, this is just going to go crazy. And if we have a look... Oh, it's still doing the other ones here. I might actually need to... I haven't finished with the fish yet. Just build another one real quick. Or else it's going to get backed up waiting for them. And because it activates with electricity, it can be offloaded instantly. And so, if we have a look here, we are just producing this stuff at a ridiculous rate. And it's just not a problem. Now, the great thing about clay deposits is that they can't explode. It says it's got a very high chance of explosion, but I have never seen a clay deposit explode. I have seen it riot if you increase its productivity via here, but I've never seen it explode or even catch on fire. I've seen it catch on fire if something else explodes near it, meaning that you can basically abuse this to an infinite degree and make it infinitely productive. With no downside. No downside whatsoever. You just need to make sure you've actually got a one. It doesn't even need to be close by because there'll be so many trucks nearby here. Let me just actually showcase that. If I put this up here maybe, it'll get a huge chain of it going, but it's still going to be just as productive just because of how many it's actually got. And the thing is, the pearls and the gold and the bauxite, that all gets added into the storage instantly, which of course we have 100,000 of. And you can see here, this chain, this unbroken chain, is not slowing down at all. And it is just beautiful. Now, there's other things that of course you can do. It's not limited to clay, but that is now the new resource to have. It used to be fish. Now it's clay. Now, over here I've got a coal mine, right? Where it is also affected by electricity, but it has a downside to having this much productivity. In that, this thing can explode. So here we go with coal going like absolute fucking crazy into this one here. And because it's electricity, it just gets instantly put in. So that there's no downtime with these guys here. They can just keep on going. With one coal mine here, you can just get so much. And that's this one here has got extra gold and oil coming through. So that's where I'm getting my oil from. I'm not importing it from the old world, although I do actually have an oil spring here. And there's really nothing stopping you from just doing it even more. Because even though it says processing time is 0, it's really 0.00 something. I just can't see anymore. And you can't ever make it be absolute 0. But one way to think of it is think of the base time it is to make a coal. So one way to look at that is if we go to here. No, not that one. If we go to here, we can see the base time is 1 every 15 seconds. So at 5,000%, 5,700% productivity, or 5,800%, what's really happening is for every 15 seconds, I'm getting 58 products of coal. So every time you do it, just adding extra, in addition to, or, you know, all the gold and oil. But what can end up happening is this one can explode, and the more that you put in here, the higher chance it explodes. So even if you put like a ton of fire stations nearby, which normally would reduce the explosion chance, it's still going to remain very high because this threshold here is just so ridiculous that it just doesn't even matter if you've got it. It's basically at the upper limit to how high you can make it explode. Even with it reduce the working conditions, because that doesn't actually reduce their base productivity. It's basically just knocking off one of these Department of Labor, but it does help with reducing the explosion chances a little bit. And you can see here, just get ridiculous amounts of productivity here. And, you know, sky's the limit. With the extra attractiveness from here, I am making tons of money from... There it is. I was wondering why it was taking so long. But then, if you click on it, you can get it rebuilt really quickly and just have it keep going. But yeah, like I said, the way to go is definitely with the clay mines. They're definitely the best to be handling this, since there's no downside, no chance of them exploding, and you can just keep doing it infinitely. And while it is funny to watch the coal mine go like that, like crazy, what you can always do is just you can import coal. You can import all of the raw resources, so you could just keep making as much clay as possible and then just sell it and import it. That way you don't have to deal with explosions, because it will happen pretty frequently. But anyway, as I was saying over here, because of our high attractiveness, despite the fact that I put no modules in here at all, we're making 100,000 coins per minute from the tourist mooring, and we could just keep increasing that. Hang on, that's done through here. We could just keep increasing that pretty much infinitely. And if there's a way for us to get more town halls, not a big deal at all. And we can see that we just increased the attractiveness even further. And that's the exploit there. That is the infinite loop of the local department and the forgetfulness of the nature of the game currently. So it kind of breaks a lot of the achievements that have currently been made with the game, I think. But you know, if you want to do it, you can. And if you don't want to do it, and if you've accidentally done it, all you got to do to stop it is destroy the local department, and everything just goes back to normal. Okay, so if I was to rebuild it now, everything's gone back to normal. The game has completely forgotten about all of the bullshit that we did. We'd have to start again from scratch, but there it is. Anyway, that's the end of this video here, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you learned something. If you haven't yet played Anno 1800, I highly recommend it. Like I said, I've already gotten 2,000 hours of enjoyment out of this game, although some of it was AFK time. Like I said, what I'm doing here with the scholars is a bit of a pain in the ass. Anyway, that's the end of this one. Appreciate you. Don't forget to check out Instant Gaming, and I'll see you next time, fuckers. Bye.